Thank you for listening. This course was created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional podcasts, books, newsletters, and cool merchandise await. Let's get started. Deepfakes are algorithmically generated or altered pieces of media that convincingly depict people or events that never occurred. The earliest wave popularized generative adversarial networks, where a generator proposes fabricated content and a discriminator critiques it until the output fools both model and viewer. Newer diffusion approaches begin from noise and iteratively denoise toward a realistic image or video sequence, raising fidelity while lowering the skill barrier. The essence is not a particular architecture but the capability to manufacture evidence, faces speaking unfamiliar words, bodies performing actions they never took, scenes that compress thousands of decisions into a plausible clip. This matters because humans rely on audiovisual cues for trust, and institutions lean on recordings as documentation. When forgery becomes cheap and fast, both belief and disbelief can be weaponized. Falsehoods pass as truth, and genuine recordings can be dismissed as fakes with equal ease. Synthetic media is the wider umbrella under which deepfakes sit, encompassing any content produced wholly or partly by generative models. That includes cloned voices reading scripts never spoken, news articles synthesized by large language models, photoreal portraits of people who do not exist, and even interactive avatars or 3D scenes. The breadth matters because harms frequently travel across modalities. A fake voicemail seeds a fabricated press release, which is bolstered by a staged photo set, each reinforcing the other's plausibility. Yet the same techniques enable accessibility, localization, and creative expression at scale. Recognizing this dual-use nature helps you build governance that deters abuse without smothering legitimate innovation. Policies should target misuse patterns, impersonation, deception, and unauthorized exploitation of identity, rather than banning the underlying capability that, when guided, can power education, safety training, and inclusive communication. Risks cluster into 4 recurring threat categories that explain most high-impact incidents. Misinformation campaigns harness synthetic media to saturate attention channels during elections, disasters, or corporate crises, overwhelming verification with emotional narratives. Fraud and identity theft exploit believable replicas of faces and voices to unlock accounts, redirect payments, or reset credentials. Harassment and extortion target private individuals with fabricated compromising material, seeking money, silence, or social damage. Reputational attacks take aim at public figures and brands, eroding trust even when later debunked, because corrections rarely travel as far as the initial shock. Across categories, attackers optimize for speed and sufficiency, not perfection. They rely on plausible cues, volume, and timing to push audiences into action before scrutiny catches up. Understanding these patterns turns an amorphous threat into concrete playbooks, controls, and training. Audio deepfakes deserve special scrutiny because voice remains a trusted channel in everyday workflows. Modern cloning systems capture timbre, rhythm, and accent from surprisingly short samples, and can generate new phrases that sound authentic to colleagues and family alike. Attackers script imposter calls to finance staff, vendors, or executives, layering urgency and secrecy to pressure real-time approvals. Where organizations still use voice biometrics or call center phrases as authentication, convincing clones can slip past weak liveness checks and replay protections. Scams escalate when audio is paired with spoofed caller ID and contextual details scraped from social profiles. The practical shift is cultural as much as technical. Treat a familiar voice as a claim, not a credential. Require callbacks to verified numbers, dual control for sensitive changes, and explicit out-of-band confirmations when money, data, or access is at stake. Video deepfakes raise the stakes by adding facial expressions, gestures, and familiar environments that our brains instinctively trust. Manipulated political messages can depress turnout, inflame divisions, or distort public debate during critical windows. In legal or corporate disputes, fabricated footage can contaminate evidence chains, forcing expensive forensic review and delaying decisions. Reputational damage compounds quickly. A convincing clip travels through social platforms and private chats in minutes, and retractions seldom erase first impressions. Attackers also use live video to social engineer teams, appearing as a supervisor on a call to bypass procedures or request credentials. Countermeasures include decoupling high-risk approvals from real-time video, maintaining known good briefing channels with pre-established provenance, and training staff to escalate rather than comply when visual authority collides with unusual requests. Images create distinct risks because they are fast to produce, easy to share, and often consumed without audio or context. Synthetic identities complete with headshots that do not map to real human seed romance scams, influence operations, and fraudulent vendor onboarding. Non-consensual explicit content targets individuals for shame or coercion, with harms that persist even when fakes are exposed. Public figures are impersonated to endorse products, move markets, or undermine credibility. Document forgery passports, pay stubs, invoices gains cover from compression artifacts and low-resolution scans that hide telltale seams. The operational lesson is to treat images as assertions that require verification. Demand originals or source files for consequential decisions, integrate provenance checks into onboarding flows, and design review processes that assume attractive visuals may be entirely fabricated, especially when they arrive paired with urgency or secrecy. Text-based risks can be the most pervasive because words travel fast and require little bandwidth to spread. Generative systems can produce convincing news-style articles, social posts, and comment threads at industrial scale, tuned to a target's language, slang, and emotional triggers. Automated propaganda blends real facts with fabricated claims, creating narratives that feel authentic enough to share without checking. Phishing evolves from typo-ridden spam into polished, personalized messages that mirror a company's tone and current projects, steering recipients toward credential theft or malware. Beyond one-off deceptions, attackers manipulate discourse itself by flooding channels with coordinated talking points, creating the illusion of consensus. The danger is cumulative. 1,000 small textual nudges can shift behavior more reliably than a single dramatic video. Treat text as an instrument of influence operations, and assume quality and volume will continue climbing as models improve and costs drop. Detection methods span forensic analysis, provenance, and statistical modeling, each catching different failure modes. For images and video, forensic techniques inspect compression patterns, lighting inconsistencies, reflections, and edge artifacts that betray synthesis. Audio analysis examines spectrograms and prosody for robotic regularities or copy-paste seams. Watermarking embeds signals at the token or pixel level that allow downstream verifiers to test whether content was machine-generated, while provenance systems cryptographically sign captures at creation so edits and origins can be traced. Anomaly detection models look for distributional oddities across frames per second, or textual token usage that deviate from human norms. Statistical artifact checks, such as improbable word co-occurrences or unnatural punctuation rhythms, can raise suspicion without proving authorship. No single method is definitive. Layered detectors reduce both false negatives and false positives by triangulating evidence across modalities. Detection is hard for structural reasons that favor attackers. Increasing realism from diffusion and transformer advances erases many telltale artifacts, while rapid tool evolution means yesterday's signatures age quickly. Cross-modal synthesis lets adversaries combine medium's voice to prime trust, images to anchor identity, text to persuade. So even if one channel looks clean, the story still lands. Ground truth is often scarce. There may be no original to compare against, and privacy constraints can limit dataset sharing for training robust detectors. Adversaries also actively probe defenses, adapting prompts and settings to evade known checks. Finally, distribution platforms amplify speed. By the time a classifier flags content, reposts and screenshots may have fragmented the trail. Effective programs accept this asymmetry and invest in early warnings, rapid triage, and containment, rather than chasing perfect, universal detection. Mitigation works best as a layered posture rather than a silver bullet. Watermarking requirements push generators to embed detectable signals, but organizations should assume some actors will strip or avoid them. Provenance logging signing captures at the point of creation, and preserving edit histories builds chains of custody that honest publishers can prove, even if bad actors refuse. Classifier-based filters reduce exposure by downranking or quarantining likely fakes, paired with human review for high-impact cases. Policy enforcement makes these controls bite: clear rules for labeling synthetic media, rapid takedown for impersonation, rate limits that slow mass upload attempts, and sanctions for repeat abusers. Crucially, mitigation must extend to user experience. Warning interstitials, friction for resharing unverified claims, and easy reporting pathways help the public participate in defense without needing technical expertise. Law and regulation provide boundaries and remedies, though they vary by jurisdiction and continue to evolve. Traditional statutes already cover much of the harm: fraud and identity theft for financial deception, election protection laws for voter suppression and misrepresentation, consumer protection for false advertising, and defamation or right of publicity for misuse of a person's likeness. Emerging rules increasingly address synthetic media labeling, impersonation prohibitions, and platform responsibilities, especially around political content windows. For organizations, the practical task is preparedness: map likely obligations, pre-draft notices with counsel, and preserve evidence with chain of custody so claims can be pursued or defended. Be precise in language. Describe what is known and unknown, and align disclosure timing with legal thresholds. Regulatory clarity may lag technology, but disciplined documentation and cooperation with authorities reduce exposure and accelerate resolution. Operationally, the pieces must connect. Detection, mitigation, and legal readiness feed a response flow that is fast, evidence-driven, and respectful of rights. Establish a rapid review cell that includes security, legal, communications, and domain experts to evaluate flagged media, decide on containment, and craft public messages. Maintain pre-authenticated channels, web pages, press lists, executive feeds, with visible provenance so your genuine statements are easier to verify than forgeries. Define thresholds for action: when to label, when to quarantine, when to request platform removal, and when to notify regulators or customers. Build partnerships with fact-checkers, industry groups, and platforms to share indicators and coordinate takedowns. Above all, rehearse. Speed and clarity under pressure are learned behaviors, and practice turns scattered tools into a coherent, trusted response when it counts. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Organizational defenses begin with culture. Teach employees that audio, video, images, and text are claims to be verified, not proof in themselves. Awareness training should emphasize common cues of coordinated manipulation, urgency, secrecy, authority, and emotional triggers, and provide practical scripts for slowing down. Pause. Verify via second channel, and involve a teammate. Build explicit rules for sensitive actions. No approvals based solely on voice or video. Required callbacks to verified numbers, and dual control for money movement or data access. Equip frontline staff with examples and short drills so the behaviors become reflexive, not theoretical. Finally, clarify safe escalation paths that are blameless and fast, so people feel supported when they say, "This might be a deepfake." Cultural readiness shifts risk from individuals deciding alone under pressure to teams following shared discipline. Awareness must be paired with monitoring and reporting so signals flow. Track impersonation attempts against executives, customer support lines, and official social accounts using brand protection and takedown services. Monitor inbound channels for patterns, multiple callers referencing the same urgent scenario, videos reusing uncommon backgrounds, unusual spikes in sentiment. Provide one-tap reporting in communication tools so employees can forward suspicious media with context. Route these to a rapid review cell that includes security, legal, and communications. Maintain response playbooks that define triage steps, evidence capture, thresholds for labeling or takedown requests, and notification templates. Assign clear roles and decision rights to avoid delay. Close the loop with what we learned updates that reinforce good catches and refine guidance. The outcome is a living system where people, tools, and procedures feedback on one another to reduce dwell time and harm. Technology safeguards create verifiable ground truth. Media authentication systems based on open standards can sign content at capture, embedding cryptographic attestations about device, time, and edits. When paired with validation tools in publishing platforms and messaging clients, audiences can check whether a clip or image arrived intact from a known source. Secure distribution platforms help too. Publish important announcements through channels that surface provenance by default, and treat unsourced uploads as untrusted until proven otherwise. Within your own apps, show provenance badges prominently and offer explorable histories for high-impact assets. None of this stops hostile fabrications outright, but it strengthens honest speech by making legitimate content easier to trust quickly. Over time, habituation to visible provenance like the padlock icon did for web encryption can reset user expectations toward verifiable media. Detection and protection also benefit from smart plumbing. Deploy anomaly flagging services that score media for likely synthesis and route high-risk items for human review before they reach large audiences. Use rate limits, friction, and quarantines to slow mass upload attempts or coordinated repo storms. Keep originals encrypted in tamper-evident storage, preserving hashes and metadata for chain of custody if disputes arise. Where you process user-submitted media, isolate scanning and rendering in sandboxed services, and log classifier outputs alongside decisions to improve over time. Build graceful failure modes. When confidence is low, label content with context rather than blocking outright. These measures transform binary allow or deny into graduated responses that balance safety and speech. The goal is not perfection, but a resilient pipeline that detects early, contains quickly, and leaves a clean trail for accountability. Impacts cascade differently across sectors, so defenses must fit the mission. In finance, audio and text deepfakes target payment redirection, vendor fraud, and account takeover. Voice-only callbacks and email confirmations are brittle. Firms need verified backchannels, named approvers, dual control, and anomaly checks on transaction metadata. Contact centers should harden identity proofing beyond knowledge-based questions and adopt liveness tests designed to resist replay. In retail and marketplaces, synthetic identities can onboard as sellers or buyers to launder funds or abuse promotions. Stronger document verification and velocity controls help. Healthcare faces risks to patient trust and consent when synthetic voices or images spoof providers. Across these domains, the common thread is replacing implicit trust in media with explicit verification steps tied to business-critical actions. National security and public life shoulder their own burdens. Deepfakes can simulate military movements, fabricate leader statements, or distort disaster guidance, testing crisis response and alliance trust. Election periods amplify harm. Manipulated clips or audio can depress turnout or inflame tensions faster than fact checks can respond. In politics and corporate leadership, reputational attacks distract, drain resources, and shape policy debates through manufactured outrage. Entertainment faces contractual and ethical questions about likeness rights, synthetic performers, and non-consensual explicit content, with downstream effects on advertising and distribution. These arenas require close coordination among governments, platforms, media organizations, and civil society, with pre-planned channels to verify genuine messages quickly. Public education campaigns that teach pause and verify are as critical as technical detectors because a prepared audience is harder to stampede. Metrics turn an amorphous threat into something you can manage. Begin with detection accuracy rates, but interpret them carefully. A simple average can mask poor performance on challenging scenarios like low-light video or accented speech. Track precision and recall by modality and language, and publish confusion matrices so teams see where detectors miss or overcall. False positive frequency matters as much as catching fakes. High rates burn analyst time, desensitize users to warnings, and invite adversaries to hide in noise. Calibrate thresholds with cost models that reflect your environment. A newsroom's tolerance differs from a bank's. Measure the lift from layered approaches, watermarks plus provenance plus classifiers against any single method. Finally, connect algorithmic scores to human outcomes by logging how often alerts lead to action, what actions work, and how long they take. A metric that doesn't change behavior is decoration, not defense. Speed closes gaps that quality alone cannot. Response time to incidents should be measured end-to-end, from upload to first flag, from first flag to containment, and from containment to public communication or takedown. Track separate timings for private versus viral channels, because the window for harm shrinks dramatically once content trends. Coverage across modalities is its own metric. What percentage of your high-risk channels, audio hotlines, social posts, file uploads are monitored with appropriately tuned detectors? Include language, geography, and device diversity in that coverage so adversaries can't route around the net. Monitor the fraction of content shipped with verifiable provenance and the percentage of your official outputs that carry signatures or labels. Pair system metrics with user ones, report rates, review throughput, and education reach. When leaders can see both speed and span, they can invest where risk actually concentrates. The strategic importance of defending against synthetic media is larger than any single incident. Societies run on shared signals, press briefings, emergency alerts, contracts, receipts, and everyday conversations that coordinate decisions among strangers. If those signals become untrustworthy, people withdraw into smaller circles, delay action, or overreact to rumor, all of which impose hidden taxes on commerce and civic life. Protecting trust in media is therefore not vanity, it is infrastructure. Organizations that move sooner by publishing through authenticated channels, labeling synthetic augmentations, and responding transparently to incidents help reset expectations for an era when seeing and hearing are no longer believing. The payoff is compounding: fewer crises, faster resolutions, and a reputation for credibility when it matters most. In a noisy environment, provable authenticity becomes a competitive advantage. Institutions need durable safeguards because attackers learn. Safeguarding companies and public agencies means reducing fraud exposure by removing single-channel approvals, strengthening identity proofing, and hardening high-value communication paths. It also means defending social stability, coordinating with platforms and civil society so harmful fabrications face friction, while truthful messages carry visible provenance. Build policies that align incentives, contracts that require signatures on critical media, vendor standards for watermarking, and internal norms that treat unlabeled clips as untrusted. Make these expectations public, and you help shift markets towards safer defaults. Over time, this discipline turns episodic firefights into orderly hygiene, layered controls, practiced response, and audit-ready evidence. Strategic posture is not about banning synthesis. It is about channeling it toward beneficial uses while starving deception of easy wins. Deepfakes and synthetic media introduce risks that span text, audio, images, and video, each exploiting our instincts to trust what resembles direct experience. We examined how threats manifest as misinformation, fraud, harassment, and reputational attacks, and why audio and video can be especially persuasive under time pressure. We explored detection through forensic analysis, watermarking, provenance, anomaly models, and artifact checks, along with the structural challenges that make perfect detection elusive. Mitigations work best in layers technical, procedural, and experiential, supported by legal frameworks that already cover much of the harm while new rules emerge. Organizational defenses combine culture, training, monitoring, and clear playbooks. Sector-specific impacts shift the emphasis, but the principle holds. Treat media as a claim to be verified, not proof to be assumed. Looking ahead, credibility at scale depends on stronger ways to prove where media comes from and how it changed. Provenance systems aim to sign content at capture and preserve edit histories so audiences and platforms can verify authenticity quickly. Watermarking schemes embed detectable signals during generation that downstream services can read, even when files are transformed. Both promise practical friction for deception and smoother passage for honest speech, yet both carry trade-offs: privacy, interoperability, robustness against removal, and incentives for adoption. In our next episode, we will unpack these mechanisms in detail, explaining how they work, where they fail, and how to deploy them effectively in real organizations. The goal is to move from ad hoc skepticism toward a verifiable media ecosystem that the public can navigate with confidence. Thanks for tuning in to Bare Metal Cyber, your trusted source for cybersecurity educational materials, news, and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.